Alrighty, chicos, bienvenidos a este Ed Puzzle. This Ed Puzzle is on the present tense of ER and IR verbs. Here I am. Aquí estoy. I'm going to leave myself down there so you guys can look at me too, just in case you need help with pronunciation and such. Okay, but today we're going to be talking about this. So please, today, this is your tarea for my odds due on Monday, for my evens due on Wednesday. Don't forget that next week we're starting our hybrid schedule back again. So this homework will be due the next time I see you physically in person and or online. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm asking that in addition to doing the answers on the Ed Puzzle, you take some notes. Okay, I need to see those notes uploaded onto the assignment itself. I want a picture of your ER and IR verbs notes. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started here. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so I don't cut up room on the screen. And here we go. You thought there were only ARs, but wait, there's more, guys. There are more. There are only 3 kinds, though. Remember way back at the beginning when we talked about conjugating, I said there's also ER and IR. Now's the time. But that's it. There are only AR, ER, and IR. Those are all the verbs that you are going to learn in Spanish. So here we go. Let's learn some more. I'm going to ask you to make a prediction, and you're going to do this on the Ed Puzzle based on our AR conjugations. How do you think ER endings, such as comer, would look? So think about the chart. Think about your AR endings. So let me ask you, what are your AR endings? Tell me that at the very least, okay? Now, based on those AR endings, that's where we're going to get our ER endings. They look very similar, but they're a little bit different. We're going to conjugate this verb comer. So again, guys, make sure you're taking notes on this. This is conjugating comer, an ER verb. Comer means to meet. Repítame, comer, comer. So in the yo form, chicos, in the yo form, very similar to our AR verb, we have yo como, I eat. In the to form, tú comes, you eat. In the usted form, usted come, see, not come, come, see, using our Spanish sounds, see, come. Nosotros comemos, with the hemos, not a amos, but a hemos. Vosotros coméis, with the accent on the E. And ellos, ellas, ustedes, let me move myself, comen, sí, comen. These are your ER endings. Okay, it's an example using this verb comer. Como, comes, come, comemos, coméis, comen. Repítame. Como, comes, come, comemos, coméis, comen. I eat, you eat, they eat, we eat. We should know these subject pronouns, the things in red, by now. I should not have to tell you what those mean. So remember, I, you, he, she, you, formal, we, you guys in Spain, they, and you guys. So this is how we conjugate an ER verb. Okay, this is an example of what an ER verb would look like. Notice our endings are in blue, so it might be a good idea for you to highlight those, underline, put them in a different color if you really want. But these are our ER endings, an example of an ER verb. Next, we got an IR verb. Okay, an IR verb are very similar to our ER verbs. So if they are very similar to our ER verbs, what do you think the endings might look like for a verb like escribir? Escribir means to write. Repítame, escribir, escribir. So in the yo form, very similar. We're going to drop the IR and we're going to replace it with a O. Escribo, I write. In the to form, tú escribes, you write, you informal. Él, ella, usted, escribe, escribe with an E at the end. Oh, wow, looking very close to our ER endings right now, isn't it? Nosotros, I'm in the way again, escribimos, escribimos. Think about why I underlined that I. Vosotros escribís, escribís, with an accent on the I. And ellos, ellas, ustedes escriben, escriben, with the E-N. So these are our IR endings, okay? For a verb like escribir, you got escribo, escribes, escribe, escribimos, escribís, escriben. So practice saying those with me at home. Escribo, escribes, escribe, escribimos, escribís, escriben, to write. I write, you write, he writes, they write, we write, etc., etc., etc. Tell me why did I underline and bold emos and is in the Edpuzzle? Moving on. This is why I underlined emos and is. Ta-da! Okay, this is the same thing. You don't need to write this down, guys, but this is the reason why I underlined, I bolded emos and is, because ER and IR endings are almost exactly the same. They're almost exactly the same with the exception of the nosotros and the vosotros forms. We got an emos for vosotros, we got an emos for comer for ER verb, we got an emos for IR verb. We got an AS, accent on the E, for ER verb, and we got an is for our IR verbs. So be careful with those two. The rest of them are the same though. O-S-A-N. O-S-A-N. Similar to our AR verbs, right? O-as-a, an, amos, ice. Very similar. We're just changing the letter because it's an ER verb and an IR verb, not an AR verb. All right. Similar to our AR verb, it is a 3-step process. And if you already understand this, you don't need to write this down, but just to refresh you guys, this is how we conjugate a verb. We start with the infinitive. What is the infinitive? It's the thing that ends with ER or IR or AR, right? The verb, the to something. Comer, to eat. Escribir, to write. Bailar, to dance, etc., etc. We start with the infinitive. We take away the ending to get the stem, right? We get the verb stem, com and escribe. Took away the ER, took away the IR, and then we conjugate it. We conjugate it depending on who the person is that we're talking about. Yo como, tú escribes. I eat, you write, right? Our ending tells us who is doing the action because, well, the beginning tells us too, but the ending of the verb, right? I don't necessarily need this yo. I could just say como, and that means I eat. I could also say yo como, and that means I eat. Escribes, you write. I could also say tú escribes. It also means you write. So that's how we conjugate it. It's a 3-step process. You should know this by now. All right, same endings for most ER verbs. So you already wrote this down, but this is just the endings, okay? So if you are somebody who wants to know what the endings are and you don't want to have to keep looking back at comer, these are just your endings. So for most ER verbs, not all, but most, they end with O, S, E, hemos, eis, en, eis, okay, eis. O-S-E, hemos, eis, en. Those are your ER endings. So again, if you do not want to write this down, you don't have to, but this is just the endings without the stems, right? This will apply to most ER verbs. Not to be confused with the endings for our IR verbs. O-S-E, hemos, is, en. O-S-E, hemos, is, en. Don't forget the accent on the is. And again, same thing. This is like the verb conjugated escribir, but we took away the escribe part and we just left the ending. So if you want to see the endings by themselves, there it is for you. All right, guys, time for new verbs. New verbs everywhere. You're welcome. Here we go. Usually in school, I would ask you guys to guess. Obviously, you're not here to do that. So this verb, to open. Chicos, to open. You're going to write these down. I would do English on one side, Spanish on the other side. The verb in Spanish is abrir. Abrir. Abrir significa to open. Abrir means to open. And how do I know that it means to open? What in this word tells me to open? Answer that question on my Edpuzzle. Moving on. This one's a little tricky. Hard to find a picture that demonstrates this. The word is aprender. Repítame. I should hear you somehow, some way, repeating these on your own at home. Aprender, to learn. Aprender, to learn. Aprender, to learn. Hopefully you guys do this every day. All right, next up. This one always takes forever. People guess and guess and guess and guess. The verb, though, is asistir. Chicos, repítame. Asistir. Asistir. And you're looking at that word and you're like, oh, must mean to assist. But this is not assisting. This is to attend. Okay? To attend. To attend to a conference. To attend to a party. To attend to a class. Okay? You always asistir if you are attending something, some kind of function. That's why that is there. Okay, so if they attend class, asistir a la clase. If you attend the conference, asistir a la conferencia. Okay, asistir, to attend. Are you ready for your mind to be blown? Ready, 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 ready? Atender, to assist. What? I know. Okay, it's weird. You don't necessarily need to know this verb. This is just extra fun information. This verb is conjugated a little bit differently, so don't worry about having to conjugate this verb. But you know, it might be a bonus point somewhere down the line. I know it's weird. Okay, asistir, to attend. Atender, to assist. Don't we just love Spanish? Moving on. You would know this verb as tomar, right? Tomar, to drink, but there is a synonym, beber, which a lot of you might be familiar with. Okay, a lot of you do know this verb. I don't know why, but it's a very common Spanish verb. Beber, okay, beber, to drink. Repítame, beber, beber. So how would I say you informal drink? You informal drink. Moving on. And everybody's other favorite word, which you also might know, comer. Comer, to eat. Comer means to eat. Comer, to eat. This one, they are sharing. Sharing is caring. Except germs. Don't share germs, guys. The word is compartir. Repítame. Compartir. Compartir, to share. To share. So how would you say we share? How would you say we share? Think about it. We share. Moving on. This one's kind of hard to do a picture of also, but the verb is comprender. Comprender looks like comprehend, yes, means to understand. Comprender, to understand. Comprender, to understand. We talk about it, we get to understanding, right? We understand each other, we comprehend each other. Comprender, to comprehend, to understand. Definitely my least favorite thing to do. Correr. Correr. Again, a lot of you guys might know this verb already, and that's a good thing. Correr, to run. Repítame. Correr. Correr. So how would you say she runs? How would I say in Spanish? She runs. Think about it. Oh, next, you're like, to jump. And no, sorry, it's really hard to do this one. The verb is creer. This one's kind of weird because there's two E's right next to each other. Repeat after me. Creer, creer, creer. You pronounce both E's, okay? Creer, creer en. To believe in, okay? To believe in you. Creo en ti. I believe in you, okay? Creer en. To believe or to believe in something, someone, okay? Creer, creer en. To believe. This one's my favorite. Hopefully you watch The Crown on Netflix and you know who these people are. This is La Familia Real, the royal family. See, the verb is deber. Repítame, deber. Deber means should, must, ought to. And yes, you have to say it with a British accent, guys. Should, must, ought to, because who the heck says ought to, right? We usually say should, we usually say must. But you know, those Brits, they say ought to, should, must, ought to. Yes, deber means all three of those things. Should, must, or ought to. I know in your brain, you're like, Sarita, it ends with ER. Doesn't that mean to something? Yeah, but do you really say to should, to must, to ought to? Not really, right? So just think, should, must, ought to, with a British accent. Deber plus an infinitive. Now, what do I mean plus an infinitive? Well, if I say something like, debes comer, tú debes comer, you, and I know I'm talking to you informal because of this ES, you should, must, ought to eat, right? You should eat. You must eat. You ought to eat. Notice this comer is not conjugated. That's what I mean by infinitive, right? We conjugate the first verb and not the second verb. Debes comer. You should, you must, you ought to eat. Debo visitar a la familia real. I should, must, ought to visit the royal family. La familia real. A la familia real. I should, I must, I ought to visit. Okay, that's what I mean by plus infinitive. But deber, chicos, deber. Should, must, ought to. Say it with British accents. Should, must, ought to. All right, moving on. This one, a little bit hard to find a picture for it, but look at that verb. Decidir. To decide. See, decidir. 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 Notice also followed up with an infinitive a lot of the time, right? I decide to run. She decides to eat, right? If you're going to say they decide to something, then that second verb needs to not be conjugated. Okay, decidir, to decide. Up next, we got describir, another cognate, to describe. See, describir, to describe. Describir, to describe. You describe yourself on your resume. See, describir, to describe. Not to be confused with, and you already wrote this one down, but write it down again. Escribir, haha, get it right. Escribir, to write. Escribir, to write. And if you're looking at this word, you might notice right there, scribe, scribe, scribble. Yes, all these having to do with writing. So look at these words, guys. Look at the word and look and see what you can see in the word. A lot of them have Latin roots. A lot of them are similar to our English words. See, escribir, to write. Up next, another verb you might know and you might not. That's okay. The verb is to read in Spanish. Repítame, leer. Leer. Again, two E's. You pronounce both E's. Leer. 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 Don't say leer. Okay, leer. To read. A mí me gusta mucho leer. ¿A ti te gusta leer? ¿A ti te gusta leer? No sé. Up next, we got recibir. You might be thinking to give, but you're going to learn that verb later. The verb right now is recibir, to receive. See, again, another cognate pretty much. Recibir, to receive. So how would you say they receive? They receive. Think about it. How would you say they receive? And the last one on my list today is vivir. I don't know if you know that song by Mark Anthony, Vivir mi vida, la 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 la. You know, J-Lo's ex-husband. I don't know. Vivir, to live. Okay, it's really hard to find a picture of to live, so lo siento. But vivir, to live. Repítame. Vivir, vivir, to live. And that is it of our IR and ER verbs, chicos. What I'm going to ask you to do right now on the Ed Puzzle is, bam, conjugate the following verbs. Follow the model. Check out my model. Yo, and then I have a blank, and the verb is escribir. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take away this IR, and I'm going to conjugate it to escribo. So you do the rest. To comer, el abrir, nosotros creer, vosotros decidir, and ustedes leer. Okay, I'll have a number on the Ed Puzzle, and that is your job. Please do not forget, chicos, this is due for my periods 1 and my period 7. Next week, Monday, February 1st. This is due for my evens, my period 2 and my period 6. Next week, Wednesday, February 3rd. That is when I will see you next. Don't forget, we're going to our hybrid schedule. Conjugate these verbs. If you have a pregunta, please shoot me an email, write a comment on Google Classroom. I am more than willing to help you guys out wherever you need. Other than that, though, chicos, whoa, that's really big. Que tengan buen fin de semana. Hopefully you're not doing this 20 minutes before class starts. Nos vemos pronto. Adios.